Hi everyone. So before we get to the assignment, I just wanted to just touch in here on the upcoming deadlines, our final two deadlines here, which is December 20th. This is this coming Wednesday. This is for task 3. Okay, so this is the very final submission. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the group critique will be on Thursday, the 21st. Okay, so that kind of ends, I guess you could say, really our all of our group critique work, our review of work, and then you're going to take and revise and submit to the final submission by Saturday, December 23rd. That's our deadline. Now, to be honest, I am not going to be in the classroom um, grading on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I won't be around. So I will actually be grading on December 26th, probably in the morning. So, if you have something you want to submit by that date, like if you want to hold off on, submitting your final submission or work over, if you want to work over that holiday, you certainly can. Just to let you know that I'll be including everything that I see in the classroom on December 26th, posting final grades at that time. Do I have anything else to say about that? I don't think so. So this is the assignment that we're working on, is task 2, where what you're doing is you were taking one of your thumbnails from the previous assignment and you were using that, it, it should be identical. So each of the 4 thumbnails that you have here should be exactly the same. The only thing that is going to be different is the color, the color itself. Why are we doing this? It's because, color is one of the design elements, along with texture and line and shape, but it happens to be a very powerful one. And this is something typically I think a lot of designers do at this phase, where they have a design where they have mocked up a design and they take it and they kind of experiment with the color, because color can change the mood or the feeling. You'll know, and that's what I think the main takeaway I'd like you to um, get from this particular phase is not necessarily what specific color harmonies are out there, because we have a color theory class where you can learn more about that, but just how color can really change your design quite dramatically. Um, so let's see. Yeah, okay, I think that's about it that I wanted to say. Then what you're going to be doing is taking this one of your final thumbnails, the color thumbnails, you're going to be taking that and moving that into the final step, which is task 3, one of these, and just developing it a little further. Um, all right. Okay, I don't think I have anything more to say about this. Let's just get started. Okay, Tracy, so I actually pulled your assignment first because I also wanted to include some comments for your task 1, and you had some problems submitting it to the classroom, so I wanted to just include it in this critique. So I'm going to actually start maybe with this, just very quickly saying that you want to just, you know, um, use one of your, so this is actually going to be moved into this phase right here. Let me just see what you wrote here, see if you have any comments on why you made a change to it. Okay, it sounds like for some reason you couldn't use your last design. Okay, yeah, sometimes that happens. Um, so I think I'll just leave this then as is. I won't probably provide any feedback, because if you're not going to be revising based on this, I don't know if there's any point in doing that. So let's just move forward to this one. Um, so it looks like, yeah, you've got 4 different designs here. In a way, what you've done is you've combined task 1 and task 2 here. So I love all these color harmonies. So what I would say is you want to just pick one of these designs, one of these, not all, not each one different. Okay, like by design I mean minus the color. I like this one. I like the kind of way that you've created the big text here. I think that looks really good. This text here is a little hard to read. So what I might recommend doing is like making this a little smaller and avoid sort of squishing it. And I might even take this text here, your name, and line it up here. So have all this lined up. But I think this could be a really good one, this one right here, in terms of the actual layout of the design. I think that's really coming along. And then what you would do is you'd repeat this 4 times, exactly the same design, and then you can use these colors. So that's how I want you to revise this. In terms of the colors, I like all of them. So they're all complementary, warm, monochromatic, and neutral. I would say I'm leaning towards these two, perhaps, just on a visual level. I like the pink quite a lot. And this one is uh, complementary, and somehow the you're talking about fashion, and somehow, I don't know, the purple seems to work pretty well with that, but I might go with this one. So that's what I'd like you to revise, is basically just making sure that it follows the assignment criteria and maybe working a bit more on the layout, making sure to line things up. And I hear you, we have a lot of concepts in this class. I do think there's a lot going on, and you know, it's always, if you feel like you want to review this material again, I do think it's always a great idea to do this. And also, on another note too, is don't expect that you're going to understand everything in this class right off the bat. I do think that these design elements and principles, you know, the fundamentals we're talking about in this class, is something that I think really can take several years to really understand. It certainly did for me. So don't worry too much if you don't feel like everything's clicking into place. It will over time. Kendra, I'm also going to just pop your task 1 design in here, since you know we have this particular week allows me to do that. Um, Something I've noticed here though is, you see how your design is not really showing up here when I try to open it in software, it's not working. The reason why is that it looks like you have renamed your file after you saved it. You know, so you had a file, I think, I'm guessing, let me try to rename it here. So typically what students do is maybe they have an AI file and they have, yeah, so it's an AI file and you renamed it after the fact. So you want to make sure that when you're working in the software that you actually save it as a JPEG from the software, not rename the file extension, because that will make it impossible to open. And if you need some help with saving your designs, just head over to Live Tutoring. If you go to AI Help and just go into Thinking Storm, and someone can help you there with saving your file, or anything else really in terms of your software. Okay, so in this design, what you wanted to do is you wanted to actually have exactly the same design here and just play with typography. Yours is almost the same, but this circle to me looks a bit different. So you would want to, you know, maybe take this out and have the design the same for all of them, okay? I would say that just in terms of visually, this one to me I think is working the best with the larger text that's, you know, really nice and easy to read. And I like the way you framed it. So I would say maybe try to find a typeface that's maybe a little heavier. Um, Potentially, you know, like thicker footprint. I think that would look good with your design. Um, and then make sure that your text is the same. So you want the same text for all of your designs. And the only thing that's going to change is the typeface itself, like the style of it and the size, the placement. But like, so Black by Kendra, chic, sassy, and classy, would be that text would be repeated on all of these. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions, but I think, you know, if you make a few changes here, then, you know, try to get this into working on this color version as soon as you can, so that you can get into the group critique on our next group critique on Thursday. You know, I would say though in this assignment, the main thing is just exploring, you know, really different, as many different color harmonies as you can, which I think you did. So you've got like an analogous with some kind of pinkish bluish colors. You've got a complement here, and then you've got an analogous or cool. Really, it's also analogous um, in the greens and blues, and then an achromatic. So that gives you a lot of options. You know, you can really see the difference here. This harmony with, when you have a lot of pinks, you know, you tend to always, it's just the nature of color symbolism, it tends to skew kind of more on the feminine side. Complement, this particular kind of complement is more sort of neutral, I would say, and it also has a lot of energy because it's a complement. This is just a little quieter and more subdued. It actually has some of that tech feel. And then achromatic can often actually sort of pull into the cool range in terms of feeling a little bit more subdued. But it's definitely sort of very neutral. Doesn't have, it's sort of kind of a little more almost scientific or sterile. Sometimes it depends upon the context. So I don't know which one you like the best. I think that I'm almost kind of leaning towards these two, uh, just because I think that they sort of seem to, they have a little bit of pop to them, and and this one has a lot of energy. And they just seem to really suit your topic. So I would say moving forward with them, if you like these two, and if you like this one to go ahead with, I think you could definitely do this one too, um, and this one too with some modifications. Um, I would just say keep in mind that you want to make sure that your positive space, which is so positive space is going to be anything that you notice, which would be the computer or the screens here and the text. And then this is your background. So I would be inclined in both of these designs, really in all of your designs, to either lighten the background or darken it. And what that will do, because when you have colors that are almost the same value or saturation, then they sort of tend to just compete with each other. And you want this to stand out. So by darkening it, the background, or lightening it, or even muting it, like desaturating it, making it not so bright, you will allow these elements to stand out. That's what I would do here. Um, and you could do that with, all of these. And then I think you're ready to kind of move into just choosing which one you like the best. And then we'll talk about, further how we might tweak it a little bit more in the next assignment if we see anything. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, Mark, let's see. The original background had been merged, so I couldn't edit each individual ring. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that sometimes happens. Um, okay, so let's see here. Complementary, achromatic, monochromatic, and warm. I like all of these. I think all of them look quite nice. I kind of maybe am leaning towards these three with the color just because there's a little bit more of a pop to them, uh, which makes sense. So I might choose, any one of these. Watch the legibility of color in your designs. This is the most legible text, and that's because you have light text against dark text, or background. Actually, this one's also legible, again, light against dark. I would take all of your text and make it a little lighter here. Same with, maybe with this, so that you get more contrast and the text is easier to read. And then also, keep in mind you want to just have a little bit more of a margin in your designs. Let's see here. So, like for example, in this one, take and just take a guideline and line up your text. Maybe even giving yourself that much of a margin, just that breathing space, and do the same with all of them so that they line up and have a little more breathing space. That makes a tremendous difference in your design. If you just Google poster design or poster graphic design, you'll see that margin. All designs with text typically have that, but just to narrow it down, you can sort of look at posters and sort of see how text is treated. But yeah, that's the main thing, a little more contrast, and I think that would be good. And then again, feel free to, I think this one too could work as well. So if you really like the achromatic one, I feel you could easily go with that one and, play with that one a little bit more. So yeah, good job exploring. Okay, Mark, so it sounds like you did some workarounds in your design. I do think that's very typical in design, especially when you're learning that you know, templates, things don't work. Well, actually, no matter what level you are at, there's always something that seems to need some fixing in a design, you know, some troubleshooting with the software. Um, okay, so you've got achromatic, analogous, monochromatic, and complement. Hmm. Yeah, they're all really, I think they're all pretty interesting. Um, you know, just make sure to have the same design for each one. They almost look like the same. Maybe there's some differences here. So the same design, and that includes the text. But I think all of these look pretty good. So to be honest, I would pick the one that you think is you like the most. Um, because I think they all have interesting possibilities. This one is a little bit more sort of muted, of course, and complement typically has more energy. Analogous has a little less energy, and then of course monochromatic is a little bit more like the achromatic, which is that it's the most subdued. And that depends upon the color you choose. You know, a cooler color like blue will be more subdued than a warmer color. But because you're just using one color, it doesn't, you know, have that pull that you might get in a complement. So yeah, yeah. So my only suggestion here is to just, you know, make sure that each design is exactly the same for when you revise. But other than that, you know, feel free to pick the harmony that appeals to you most in terms of what you're trying to say with the design. Okay, Velvet. Yeah, I think your text looks much better. It's easier to read, and yet it's still very creative. You have a lot of texture in this design as well. So you've got a lot of really interesting color harmonies here. So that's great. It's great that you experimented with so many different colors. You've got split complement, high contrast, monochromatic, and analogous. And again, you know, a lot of what you decide upon in terms of color, which color harmony you think works best for you for your design really depends upon what you want to say with it. Um, you know, oftentimes having a lot of red in a design makes it really more intense, sort of psychologically intense, kind of dramatic, um, dangerous, kind of dangerous quality. Um, this looks, purple oftentimes has sort of a spiritual color. So in terms of the last life, kind of had that sort of spiritual color to me, like almost like what is the last life in terms of religion or spirituality or something like that. Um, and then these two are a little bit less, you know, this one's more kind of fun, you know, almost party-like, and like the last life, you know, spring break. I don't know, you know, and the last life here is, I'm not quite sure what I would say with this one in terms of a read on that one. Um, Anyhow, sometimes it's nice to get feedback from somebody else about what kind of mood they're getting from it. So I would pick the one you think is the best. In terms of revision on this one, I really only have one major suggestion in this one, which is to take the black color in all of these and turn it into a dark color of your, so let me just show you what I mean here. So I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool just to sample this black right here. And it's showing me, there it is, there's the black. Now if you move up just a few shades, and this is a good trick for everybody, um, if you go a little bit more, I'm going to kind of pull it maybe up this way. Can you see how it's still reading as a very dark color? You can even make it a little bit more to make it kind of a little more black. But I kind of like moving it up so it's a little more noticeable. And you can see now that what you can actually see is the underlying hue. Can you see as I go through here that my underlying hue is changing? So, you know, I can sort of make it, I can even bring it a little bit more this way. So instead of being so desaturated, if you move it to the right, you get more color in it. Sort of, you know what I mean? So that in a background, like let's just go back, let's take this purple down here, and you can see again that you can kind of do, so that in the background, that color instead of the black will be so much more interesting in the design. You know, so because a solid black, it tends to sort of kind of in a way detach itself from the rest of the design, and so nothing flows because it's like almost like a dead space in a design. Whereas that dark color that still maintains a bit of the hue of some other color in your design will start to tie it together. And I would do the same thing with all of the blacks in here, like every part where everywhere you have black, replace it with a dark shade. Um, okay, that's my feedback. Again, nice job revising your text. Okay, Wandra. All right, so you have a monochrome, neutral, cool colors, and warm colors. Okay, yeah. So in all, it's just to keep in mind that this would actually be considered. I'm not sure what color harmony, but this cool. If you want cool colors, then you would replace the pink with a blue, green, or purple. And that actually is not hard to do here. You could take this pink and sort of turn it into a kind of a violet color, which I think would work with it. And then in this one, warm colors, you would want to have, instead of green, you'd want to have orange, yellow, or red. Or what you could do is you could turn this into a complement and just remove the yellow, and then green and red would be a complement. So you could do that too. So yeah, in your design, you just want to make sure too that you've got all of the same components in place. So rather than changing, it looks like you've got 4 different designs. It should be exactly the same. That includes the gradient and the background. Everything should be the same, the style of text. And then the only thing that would be different is the color. Okay. Um, okay, so I think that's the main thing here. Make sure if you can to mask this little area here. You can either put a white rectangle over it or work with the template to make sure that the edge is masked. And I would still kind of keep experimenting a little bit more with that star design. If you remember back in a group critique where we looked at that star design and how you can start kind of building a more interesting complexity to the design, I think that would work really beautifully in your design. Let me know if you want me to dig that up for you, our discussion on the star design. Okay. Okay, let's see. You said that you struggled the most with the monochromatic. I think that there is something innately challenging about monochromatic because you just have one single color that you have to work with, so it has a limitation to it. Um, yeah, okay, let's take a look here. And you mentioned, let's see, I like the triadic. Triadic is actually I think, I'm going to switch into Photoshop here so we can maybe zoom in a little bit more here. Um, yeah, triadic, I think, can be very attention grabbing with the 3 different colors. I also think it has kind of a designed look to it, which I think is because it's more unusual. Triadic and tetradic tend to be like, I think of them as designer colors because you look at the colors and you think, wow, how did the designer get such different colors to make sense? Little do they know that we use formulas to, the average person doesn't know that we actually use a formula to create color harmonies most often. And so we're, creating something that actually naturally does want to go together. It just looks like the colors are quite different. Um, yeah, okay, yeah, go with that one. Actually think all of them look quite good. I could see you, working with any of these. Um, so yeah, I would just say the thing to watch is in this text down here. Sometimes when text gets so small, you sometimes have to, let me just zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, when we get bigger, you might want to maybe bold this text later when you get to the, draft phase, just to make it stand out a little bit more. Or you can make it a tiny bit lighter. Um, this one too, I might make this lighter, a very pale blue, almost white, so to make it stand out. This one could be also either a little darker, a little lighter, maybe bold, or it's just something. It's got a lot happening behind it, so it makes sense that it's a little harder to read, and then again, the smaller text, but I think you can easily work on that. Okay, I think that's the main thing here. Otherwise, I think this is looking really good, and it's a really nice example of working with the design elements and principles.